Before she confronted the booming pesticide industry, the national government, and the general public to expose harmful pesticides, before she began her fight against cancer, before she wrote novels that changed the world, Rachel Carson was a little girl who loved nature.
Rachel Louise Carson, born on May 27, 1907, on a farm in Pennsylvania, spent her childhood exploring the nearby woods and admiring the Allegheny River with her mother.
As an adult, she attended nature trips to work with children like Stanley A. Temple, now an accomplished ecologist and wildlife biologist who shared his experience.
Rachel Carson's approach, which was more to sort of take me aside and really sort of experience, just as she said it, the sense of wonder about some of the things that we were seeing on those field trips.
Carson went into college a brilliant writer, but soon discovered her love for science. She switched her major from English to biology, setting the stage for her future as a revolutionary nature writer.
After college, she wrote radio scripts for the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries, a job that united her two passions.
It was around this time when dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane was discovered as an effective insecticide by Swiss scientist Paul Mueller.
So began the era of chemical innovation. DDT was soon sent overseas, where World War II was devastating Europe. In cities like Naples, typhus, which was spread by lice, killed soldiers and civilians, so cities set up spray stations to douse everyone in DDT.
In the Pacific, more soldiers were dying of malaria than warfare until DDT eliminated the mosquitoes carrying the fatal disease.
DDT's success as an insect bomb was said to be just as important as the atomic bomb in the World War II victory. Paul Mueller even won the Nobel Prize in 1948 for his discovery of DDT.
While the world was swept up in the magic of DDT, Rachel Carson remained skeptical. How could a chemical so new, about which so little was known, be used so liberally without fear of consequences? Especially when bird and fish populations declined in areas sprayed by DDT, Carson knew the so-called miracle pesticide was too good to be true.
She began researching and compiled enough evidence for an expository article on unregulated use of DDT. When she submitted her piece to Reader's Digest, however, it was rejected as they claimed housewives would not like such an incendiary article.
Rachel Carson felt stuck. After an unsuccessful first novel, Under the Sea Wind, family and financial troubles, and the Reader's Digest rejection, her future as a writer seemed out of reach.
The praise and excessive use of DDT continued. The Department of Agriculture endorsed the pesticide. The military even sold decommissioned duster planes to spread DDT over fields to increase agricultural output.
Soon, DDT was available for civilian use, sold directly to consumers. Americans grew obsessed with the idea that science and human innovation would enable man to control nature.
All were captivated with DDT's effectiveness, and few questioned its safety beyond immediate toxicity.
Still, Rachel Carson knew her efforts would be more effective elsewhere. She decided to write another book about the ocean, titled The Sea Around Us. The book, folding science into prose, was so successful that Carson supported her family with her book profits alone. She quit her job and refocused her efforts on researching DDT.
10 years after Reader's Digest rejected her concerns, there was a resurgence of the pesticide conversation with the U.S. government's campaign to eradicate fire ants, flaunting its chemical power in the Cold War. Unsurprisingly, this campaign sickened mass populations of fish, birds, and other small animals in the South.
Unregulated pesticide use was chaotic. The government only mandated registration of new chemical compounds with no mention of independent safety testing, and its sale and use were unlimited as long as the label had safe use instructions.
So, DDT was sprayed everywhere, within homes, over lawns, even directly onto people. Some even consumed DDT to prove its safety.
As Carson resurrected her research, what she found was frightening. Study after study was independently inconclusive, but combined they painted a horrific picture of DDT's damage to the environment.
Rachel Carson began writing another novel, intricately blending powerful images and scientific fact. She saw the imbalance in the pesticide conversation, how the only information about these products came from the companies who made and sold them. Carson set out to expose the full picture.
She felt the weight of this work and knew that though it would be challenging, writing this new book was absolutely essential.
She stood her ground even through the cranberry scare of 1959, when it became clear just how close the ties were between the government and the chemical industry.
When an error in planting cycles created a cranberry crop tainted by harmful chemicals, Americans were wary to buy cranberry sauce. To save this massive industry, many political figureheads, including John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, publicly consumed and endorsed the cranberry sauce to assure the public of its safety.
Carson was just one woman against a booming industry, a powerful political system, and a population with complete blind faith in pesticides. She knew that she would have to use her skills as a writer not only to inform but to communicate. She couldn't just publish her research. She needed to construct a narrative that would make her readers understand the gravity of her findings.
Not all of Carson's obstacles were external. After years of tumors in her breasts and even a mastectomy, Carson learned in 1960 that she had breast cancer, which had metastasized. She began radiation in 61, now rushing against the clock to finish her book before her illness overcame her.
Writing the book was a slow and painful process, but finally, Carson sent Silent Spring to her publisher and to the New Yorker in 1962.
She opens the book with a poignant description of a town waking to a silent world. The chemical powder sprayed across their land had killed all the birds who once sang out as the sun rose.
Her emotional approach to the pesticide issue, detailing the horrors of an ecosystem plagued by pesticides, allowed her to touch the entire nation. Though evidence-based, it is not a scientific report. She wrote it so that everyone, not just scientists, could understand how their world was dying.
Although it was grounded in decades of research, Carson's novel ignited a firestorm of controversy.
Critics denounced the book because of the circumstantial evidence backing up her claims. No solid answer could be decided at this point as to the full extent of DDT's consequences. But Carson never wanted to catalog the effects, but rather to wake the population up to the dangers of pesticides.
Others claimed it was biased, since the book only cited the negatives of pesticides, labeling them elixirs of death. But while Carson acknowledged some benefits, she focused on the damage that was long hidden to provide balance to an already biased conversation.
When she was criticized that her book was just about the bad things and nothing about the good things, it was charged there was no balance in the book. And she said, I am the balance, because you, the industry, has spent millions and millions of dollars publicizing the benefits and not a word about the problems.
The chemical industry erupted when its interests were in danger. Chlordane producer Vesicle Corporation threatened Houghton Mifflin with a libel suit if it published Silent Spring. The National Agricultural Chemical Association launched a $25,000 campaign flooding the media with opposition ads and pamphlets.
Much of the criticism was personal. Cold War tensions led to rumors that Carson had communist sympathies. Sexist individuals also rushed to denounce her publication. One remarked, "Isn't it just like a woman to be scared to death of a few little bugs?" Some believed that our supply of food will be reduced to East Curtain parity. These false claims neglect the fatal consequences that pesticides have on the ecosystem and on humans.
Among the negative feedback, though, were countless letters from citizens expressing horror at the true effects of pesticides that they had long trusted. Many thanked Carson for enlightening the world about a hidden environmental danger.
Knowing citizens would soon turn to the government for answers, Kennedy asked the Science Advisory Committee to study Carson's claims. After hearing her compelling testimony and researching further, the committee officially supported her argument in 1963 with the uses of pesticides. The next day, hearings on pesticide usage began in Congress.
Carson started a conversation that would echo across the globe. On June 4, 1963, when Carson testified before the Senate Government Operations Subcommittee, she was praised as the lady who started all of this.
She was so influential, there's almost no way to overstate her impact. People like her come along rarely, but her impact was far beyond anything she had ever expected, I can tell you that.
Just as the world started to listen, Carson lost her battle against cancer on April 16, 1964. But it was not before she galvanized the nation. People wanted change now and would continue the fight that Carson began.
The government began reform soon after. By 1964, companies were federally required to prove their product's safety before selling it, and in 1972, DDT was banned. Now that the world knew the truth about DDT, no chemical would be spread so liberally without extensive testing.
In 1970, Nixon established the Environmental Protection Agency, devoted to regulating humans' effect on the natural world.
And there was a whole raft of environmental laws passed in the early 1970s that established the foundation documents of our environmental protection approach. And it was really based on, the arguments that Rachel Carson had raised years before about taking precaution and preventing damage.
In 1988, the American Chemical Council established Responsible Care, an ethics code ensuring safe chemical regulation, now extended to 68 countries. Globally, the chemical industry understands its role in nature's interdependency.
Today, GMOs, pesticides, and especially climate change dominate the continuing environmental conversation. Because of Rachel Carson and her revolutionary writing, we have made significant strides towards saving our planet, but there is still a long way to go.
And I think the time for turning this around is getting shorter and shorter. And we need to have a massive public outcry and demand people be accountable for this and take action. It isn't that we don't know what to do. It isn't a technology problem at all. It's an ethics problem. You need to really understand that we are in a fight for our lives because the planet will not sustain an equilibrium of a viable habitat for people or any other living creatures at the rate that we're going.